If you look at any of the job portals and if you look at positions for database developers, you will often find this trend that we want only cloud certified developers, or we want those who have experience working on cloud. And this is not just a requirement, it is a mandate. It means that if you haven't worked on the cloud, then you simply don't qualify for this position. In this video, I'm going to explain why I do not like this trend and why I think we should have a change in our perspective. To explain my viewpoint, let me take an extreme example that involves zombies. Imagine you and your family are surrounded by zombies, and your number one priority is to get yourself and your family to safety. The military is willing to help you out. They have 2 military personnel that can help you. However, you get to pick only one out of the 2. Now let's look at both of our options. Our first military personnel, let's call her Preeti. She has 10,000 confirmed zombie kills, which is pretty impressive. Our second military personnel, let's call her Deepti. She has 1,000 confirmed zombie kills. This is the first level of information that we have about these military personnel. Before I can provide you additional information about these military personnel, I can see that you're already making a decision based on the number of zombie kills that I have provided here. Now let's look at their years in military service. Preeti has been in the military for 5 years and Deepti has been in the military for 7. By this point, if you're picking Preeti to be the savior of you and your family, your choice is the same as 99% of others who are watching this video. Now wait for the last bit of information about these two that will completely change your decision. Preeti is a drone pilot. She operates drones remotely from her base station, and at the flick of a switch, she can kill hundreds of zombies from a safe distance. Deepti, on the other hand, is a foot soldier. She may have lesser number of kills at 1,000, but she has proven herself in hand-to-hand close combat and killing zombies at a close distance. And now that we have this information, it might be challenging the decision that you made earlier. So to wrap up this analogy, I'm not here to prove that a foot soldier is better than a drone pilot. What I'm here to say is that we should not just, let's say, look at numbers, but we should look at all the characteristics of a person and decide if that person is suitable for the job. In this example, Deepti, who is a foot soldier, might have much better experience in close quarters combat and hand-to-hand combat and will be a better fit to rescue your family from a zombie attack compared to Preeti, who can only help from a distance. Now let's come back from the world of zombies into the world of databases. Imagine we have similar profiles. Here we have Preeti, who is a certified cloud database developer, and then we have Deepti, who has only worked on on-premise databases. If you are a hiring manager for a company that's migrating to the cloud, your first choice will be Preeti, of course. Why? Because she is certified in cloud databases. But I would say let's look beyond the certification. Let's look at the experience that both of them have had in their careers. Now let's imagine how Preeti's experience has been working on cloud databases. Here you can see when Preeti works on a cloud database, the whole purpose of a cloud is it makes a lot of things easier for you. For example, all Preeti has to do is deal with the SQL interface. Right, the interface through which she creates tables, create procedures, functions, writes queries, and so on. There is a lot that happens beyond just development, such as the storage, the operating system, the backup of the database, the restore of the database, replication, auto scaling, and so on and so forth. There are many other things that happen beyond just basic SQL development. I don't mean to say that Preeti is unaware. What I mean to say is Preeti has access to these with just a click of a button. For example, if Preeti wants to back up the database, she just has to perform a series of steps using the cloud console. The same goes with, let's say, restoring a database or vertically scaling up or scaling down a database. And that's the whole point of a cloud. It makes things easier for you. But what this also means is, since cloud is abstracting away all these details from Preeti, she really doesn't understand how these things work underneath. She just knows how to use them, but she may not be able to explain what is actually happening in the background or be able to troubleshoot them effectively. And now let's look at the career path of Deepthi, who has only worked on on-prem databases. Now let's imagine Deepthi's experience with the databases. Since Deepthi has only worked on on-prem databases, her experience is not just limited to, let's say, doing database development, but also extends into the other functions of a database, such as storage, upgrade, backup and restore, replication, and so on. What this also means is, at some point in time, Deepthi may have set up a database on her own on an operating system. It could be Linux or Windows, which means she's comfortable with downloading the binaries, going through the installation process, whether it's a silent install or a guided install on a Windows or a Linux or maybe even a Mac machine. Since it's an on-prem system, she will be experienced in a manual upgrade of the database from one version to the higher version, as well as adding additional resources. So by that I am referring to the vertical scaling of a database, adding more CPU, more RAM, more storage, and anytime these changes are done, what are the changes that need to be done on the database configuration. So these are the various activities of a database that Deepthi will be experienced in apart from the regular development. Some of you may consider vertical scaling as database administration. I believe that a true database developer is not just limited to development, but is also aware of what are the different things in a database that affect the performance, and that extends all the way till the hardware as well. So to conclude, Deepthi is not just using the SQL interface, but she is also familiar with how databases use and interact with the various components, such as the storage, the operating system, monitoring the database for load, for disk IO, and many other attributes of the operating system that affect the database performance. So to conclude, I have a message for the three characters in this video: the hiring manager, the Preetis, and Deepthis. First, the hiring manager. If you are adding database developers to your team who have to work in the cloud, do not make the cloud certification as a mandate. Instead, look for database developers who have worked extensively on on-prem databases. If you come across such developers, if you just train them a little bit on the cloud, you will have developers in your team who are the best of both worlds. Whether you are working on the cloud or tomorrow if you switch back to on-prem databases, these developers will never let you down. So once again, do not make cloud certification a mandate. Instead, make it a nice to have requirement. In the context of this video, how do you identify yourself? Are you a Preeti or are you a Deepthi? You are a Preeti if you are comfortable working with cloud databases, you have one or more certifications in cloud databases, and your organization is exclusively using cloud technologies, like you're completely on either Azure or AWS or maybe both, but absolutely nothing on-prem. So if this is you, then this is what you should do. Even though your organization is exclusively on cloud, you should start playing with on-prem databases on your own. And for this, you don't necessarily need any of your company infra. You can use your own personal laptop or desktop, install any of the open source databases like PostgreSQL, MySQL, even proprietary databases like SQL Server and Oracle. You do get a community or a free version which you can download and install. With this, you get a lot of experience on how do these databases work or behave on-prem. Once you're past that, try to replicate some of the cloud features that you see. For example, you might have easily done a backup or a restore or a replication in the cloud. See how you can set up those on-prem. What does it take? What are the different features? What are the different, let's say, third-party dependencies that you need to do a backup, to do a restore, and all the other features that are very convenient in the cloud. And then also try installing and uninstalling these databases on different environments or different operating systems such as Windows and Linux. What I know is most of the developers, they come from a Windows background, right? And we are never comfortable with Linux. When it comes to the cloud, you may not know it, but many of your databases are actually running on Linux. So when you're experimenting on-prem, make sure you get a feel for the different operating systems. Do not limit yourself just to one operating system. After all, it's your personal machine, so you don't lose anything if you break something. You can always reinstall the OS and continue your learning journey. Now let's see if you identify yourself as a Deepthi. So you have good experience working on on-premise databases. You do not have any experience with cloud databases as such. And then the reason you don't have experience with cloud is because your organization is still exclusively on-prem. So if this describes you, you probably fit into this profile of Deepthi. So what should you do? The quickest thing that you can do is start playing around with free tier cloud databases. There are plenty of cloud databases out there which do offer a free tier, but you have to read the terms and conditions very carefully, because after a certain usage, you start getting charged for the usage. So you have to be very cautious about that. Second, there's a lot that you can learn just by reading the documentation. The more and more that you read, you start to realize that many of these databases have a similar architecture underneath. Also, many of the teams that develop and maintain these cloud databases, they have their own YouTube channel. So visit their channels, look at their videos in spare time, and just watching these videos gives you a very good idea of how these databases work. So how all this helps is when your organization finally decides to migrate to the cloud, you're not just someone who has only worked on on-prem databases, but you also have some knowledge that you can begin with. Or if you're changing a job, you can always say that you're familiar with cloud databases instead of saying that, no, I just don't have any experience with cloud databases. So to conclude, a cloud certification should not be a mandate in your hiring process. Yes, it helps, but there are other things that are beyond the certification that should be fully evaluated. At the same time, please do give a chance for those who have only worked on on-prem, but they understand on-prem databases very, very well. These database developers who have only worked on on-premise database with little bit of training in the cloud can become a very capable developer in your team. So with this, I end this video. I hope I was able to convey my message to you. Let me know what you think in the comment section. I'm always open to feedback and different perspectives as well. Thank you for sticking till the end of this video. I'll see you in my next video. Thank you.